Tonight, the skies above Hampton Roads are looking clear as we watch Hurricane Michael develop.
The storm is expected to make landfall in the U.S. We just learned the governor of Alabama has declared a state of emergency. Jeff is tracking the storm.
And obviously, with a storm this far away, I mean literally thousands of miles away, a small deviation of even 2 degrees off of where we're thinking it would go would make a difference here locally. So in addition to whether it gets stronger or slightly stronger or much stronger, so you can see all the bright colors indicating the clouds go really high into the atmosphere. That's one of the things we look for to see how it's developing. So by tomorrow, going to be generally about, in the middle of the night tonight, early tomorrow, about 100-mile-per-hour storm, and then continue into a 115-mile-per-hour storm. Of course, sometimes they can be weaker than that. Sometimes they can be stronger too. But like we had with the Florence, let's keep our fingers crossed that maybe we can get lucky and have it bring up some cooler water and maybe weaken somewhat. But in any event, whether it does it as a 1 or a 2 or a 3, once it makes landfall and comes up through the land-based areas here of the Carolinas, in Georgia, it will be weakening very rapidly. Typically, a storm would continue that trend, but when we get into October and there are these strong fronts, they transition then into a half hybrid system. So when that occasionally happens, we're going to have to watch the timing of it to see whether it happens once it's offshore from us or before it gets offshore. That would make a big difference in our effects here locally. So a few inches of rain, that'll cause some issues. It wouldn't be a huge problem. In terms of the probability that we get strong winds, let's look at just the chances of over 40 miles per hour. That's 10%, 20%. So most of our area looking at about 30-some% chance that we get winds of tropical storm force strength. Obviously, that would not do a lot of damage, and with a quick moving storm, wouldn't be a ton of rain. So we'll detail more best case, worst case scenario, all of that coming up.
Jeff, thanks. Already, Currituck County officials are encouraging residents to keep an eye on Hurricane Michael. Officials sent an advisory today telling everyone to monitor the path of the storm and also to let everyone know that county officials will be posting updates on their social media pages. They say anyone with questions can call their emergency management office.
A daytime shooting in Norfolk sends people running for cover. Witnesses say they heard numerous gunshots this morning on Finner Street. One man was shot several times. 13 News Now reporter Robert Boyd talked to people who were in the neighborhood when someone opened fire.
Well, this shooting has really rattled this neighborhood. A lot of people were out and about today around 9 in the morning when the shooting took place, and now police and neighbors are left wondering why.
How do you feel about someone being shot right outside your home?
Terrible, terrible. That's a bad thing.
Juanita Cunningham woke up to a police officer banging on her door, alerting her that a man had been shot outside her apartment. Turns out Juanita knows the victim.
He was a nice person. Yes, very nice.
Juanita says the man doesn't live in the neighborhood, but is sometimes here visiting friends. Police say he was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries.
The police say he was shot 3 times.
Any idea why someone would shoot him?
I don't know, because young people in this day and age, you can't even look at them without them wanting to jump on you.
So far, there have been no arrests in the case. Residents say it was one of the more frightening moments of their lives because there was so much gunfire in a matter of seconds and they didn't know where it was coming from.
When I was walking up, I heard a whole bunch of gunshots, so I turned around, I had to run. I didn't really see nobody. I just seen a bunch of people running, so I ran too.
I actually was sitting on the couch. I actually folded up my legs up to my knees and held on like that, when I heard the shooting.
Brian Kelly said he hopes there is an arrest soon. The last thing anyone wants is a return visit to the neighborhood by these suspects.
I think this is pretty bad that people got to go around doing this kind of thing and treating people this way.
Police are looking for help from these residents. If anyone out there has any information on this case, you're being urged to call Norfolk Police. In Norfolk, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.
Also in Norfolk, a teenage boy is recovering after he was shot at a bus stop this morning. It happened just before 9 o'clock on East Virginia Beach Boulevard. Police say someone opened fire and the 17-year-old shot him in the foot. There is no information yet on the motive in this case or any suspects.
A gruesome sight at Bay Point Marina in Norfolk overnight. 13 News Now was on scene as police began investigating a man's death. Crews pulled a body from the water near East Beach around midnight. Police are investigating the situation as an undetermined death. The person's identity has not yet been released. New information tonight on the woman arrested in a hit and run near the Virginia Beach oceanfront over the weekend. Police arrested 29-year-old Alexis Rummel. The city of Virginia Beach tells us Rummel is an a clerk in the city treasurer's office. Tonight, she is still employed with the city. The crash last month badly injured a woman who was jogging near Mediterranean and Carolina Avenues. We talked to Karen Stout. She is finally out of the hospital now, but will continue to recover from broken bones in her back, ribs, and ankles.
New information tonight on Sean Brown. She's the former 2nd District congressional candidate who was bounced from the race after issues were uncovered with petitions to get her on the ballot. Brown was set to face a retrial on federal criminal charges tomorrow, but that won't happen. And now we're learning why. 13 News Now investigative reporter Laura Geller joins us now with the story.
Well, we've learned the trial is postponed, the venue has changed, and now there's a special request for jurors. Court documents show all of this is because of the controversy in the 2nd District race, which we told you about back in August. It is having lasting impacts outside the election.
A judge in Norfolk declared a mistrial for Sean Brown's federal fraud charges. Now a judge in Newport News will preside over Brown's federal retrial. Brown is facing felony fraud charges related to a summer program to serve meals to the needy. The judge pushed back that retrial to October 22nd. The extra time will help the court deal with jury pool issues. Some of this federal court division includes the 2nd Congressional District, where Sean Brown's name has been in the news regularly. Brown's attorney argued if people in the 2nd District are called as jurors, they'd have a direct conflict of interest. A judge in Richmond kicked Sean Brown off the ballot because of issues with her petitions, and now a federal judge has ordered the court not to summon any potential jurors who live in the 2nd District. He will also ask about this particular issue when choosing who will decide whether or not Sean Brown committed fraud. He wrote, "The ends of justice are served by this continuance."
Again, the trial is now scheduled for October 22nd. Newport News potential jurors who do not live in the 2nd District could receive summonses soon. Laura Geller, 13 News Now.
Tomorrow, a man accused of exposing himself to children on a playground has a court date. Norfolk police arrested 36-year-old Jeremy Watson Booson over the weekend. They say he flashed several children at a playground last week at St. Patrick's Catholic School. He is currently in the Norfolk jail without bond.